want to welcome the Misfit Patriot, Mr. Misfit. So appreciate you actually taking the time to be here too. I know you've been around lately. You've been on Piers Morgan. You've been on a bunch of other podcasts, doing debates, etc. As we kind of discussed offline, I really wanted you here because I wanted to give you the opportunity to explain yourself a bit more, because what I've seen is a bit, I'll just say this. I've seen other people's fan base or fanboys basically get behind the other person or whoever and really bolster them up to try to make you look bad. And in my opinion, I don't think everything you say is a bad opinion. I don't. And I just don't think you're given enough air to breathe, right? Or enough room to actually say what you got to say. So I just wanted to get to know you and just get to know like where you're actually coming from. And I will bring up some of the things that were, I guess, controversial, especially if you're paying attention to social media, which is another world in and of itself, right? So yeah, with that, I just want to start with this. I am going to get into the Iran-Israel thing because that was pretty recent. And you have a lot to say about that. But I want to start with what's going on with your, I wouldn't say beefs, but your squabbles lately. For example, with like Dave Smith, you said some stuff about Laura Loomer, which I can understand. But can you explain a bit what's going on between you and Dave? I mean, Dave kind of tries to dismiss you, but you seem to not let him get away with everything that he says.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that for me?
Sure. Dave's just like everybody else that I call out. When I see hypocrisy online, I usually call it out. I don't care if it's on my side. I mean, look, I spent years calling out the hypocrisy of the left because it's easy. It's literally like fish in a barrel. And I've noticed recently, pretty recently, that there's this wing of the right that's adopting this double standard, whataboutism, and I would classify it as woke ideology. Like, so there's this debate about, James Lindsay, myself, and some others adopted this whole woke right a framing tactic, and a lot of people are like, woke means left. No, woke actually just means oppressor oppressed ideology, where it's basically like there's a they out there that's responsible for all of your problems, and you bitch about it, and you don't have no personal accountability. The right has never adopted this until recently. So I've been calling out the quote woke right, and I think that I don't know if Dave is necessarily woke right. He's definitely fucking woke, because he's got this this ideology where there's this boogeyman bad guy, the American government, the Israeli government, this, that, and the other, and under the guise of morality and libertarianism, he thinks that he's got this moral superiority over others. So that's just a little intro into why I'm calling anybody out. But as far as Dave Smith specifically, what I've noticed about Dave Smith is he's got this debate me bro shtick. Now Andrew Wilson has this same thing, but Andrew Wilson, I would say, I disagree with him a lot, but Andrew Wilson, I would say, actually should be in that space, right? Andrew Wilson's smart, articulate, well-read. He goes after the substance, whereas Dave uses gaslighting, narcissism, and abuse techniques to bully, berate his audience, and he usually does it under a platform where he's got the home field advantage, like on Piers Morgan or on Joe Rogan or on his own channel. I've really not seen a lot of substance from him and others where they're actually arguing in good faith. Like, so as far as like why this bothers me so much is because I'm seeing it accepted in my own party. I'm seeing a lot of people that are sort of just jumping on. There's this single issue voter block that's now just anti-Israel, right?
Yeah.
And they don't give a shit who you are. I see Johnny UTD, a far radical leftist from the UK, reposting Nick Fuentes because the only thing they have in common is they both hate Jews. And I also see this is why I think this is one of the biggest issues of our time right now. I see a September 10th mentality in this country where we are not looking at the threat of radical Islam and how it is a real danger to, I would say, any Western civilization or any, you know what? I don't know why we always do that. Peaceful civilization. Everywhere radical Islam has been implemented, it has made the place that it is implemented in worse. And we just had a primary in New York City, the biggest city in America, and they voted in a radical Islamist supporter and socialist. So why am I calling these people out? It's pretty much me pulling the fire alarm, except I'm not Jamal Bowman. I actually think there is a fire.
Right. Well, my thing with Dave is, and I've talked about this personally myself. My brother and I have gone down this road. I actually respect Dave for the fact that he is intelligent, but I think that he's gotten to a point where he's gotten so big and he's used to being patted on the back that everything he says is gold. And I don't believe that. He's even made the argument that, well, I make better arguments because I read books. Great, everyone reads books. But the problem with his books is he only accepts the ones that he says himself, quoted, I just read better books. But both these books have the same facts. He just prefers the ones that have the inflection of the author or the opinions that support his view. So regardless, he does come into things with a lot of bias. He just won't admit it. And I don't believe he's always correct. So I do understand why you call him out. I don't know. I think he should be on a platform where he's more, like you said, challenged, not necessarily surrounded by his peers and constantly being, like I said before, pat on the back or even they gang up on the other person, who they're debating, which is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, and this whole debate thing, it's like, I'm not a debater, by the way, right? These people keep asking me to debate them. I don't go out and say, I would like to debate X, Y, Z. No, Owen Schroyer said, I want to debate you. Andrew Wilson said, I want to debate you. A couple other people. I've probably been in, I don't know, half a dozen debates, maybe. I will accept any debate because I think that the best way to solve problems is through discourse because, when discourse ends, violence begins. However, what I've noticed is when these people try to talk to me, you were alluding to this earlier, right? They have this, I would say, false sense of confidence because they're in their own echo chamber. They have like, I'm not gonna discredit the fact that these people have actual fans and real people that really support them. But I think that it's a lot of fake engagement where they're getting boosted and they're seeing their notifications. They're like, you did great. You won. You're the best. Right. You crushed him. So what I do is like with the Owen Schroyer debate, I did an Owen Schroyer debate. I rewatched the debate. I will fully admit that my first debate with Andrew Wilson, I lost, right? I have no problem saying that. I didn't know the substance. I told him I didn't know the substance. We were trying to have a theological debate. He's clearly more educated on theology than I am. So I can say that I lost, right, on the substance. The second debate, I think it was fairly even. I watched the Owen Schroyer debate and I rewatched it knowing that I can be wrong. I can lose debates. If somebody does better than me or knows more than me, I'll be happy to admit it. When I rewatched it, I did not see him make a single point that actually won on substance. He just yelled and screamed, and he didn't have any argument. He said Qatar was our greatest ally. I said, "What evidence do you have that our greatest ally?" He goes, "What evidence do you have that they're not?" I asked you a question.
Yeah.
So anyway, what happens is because he has so much more followers than me, he does the debate. He doesn't do anything to win the debate. But everybody goes, you won the debate. But he actually didn't. But he's going around. It's like that meme where you see the cartoon guy and he's popping a bottle of champagne and biting his medal and he's like, yeah, and then it zooms out and he's in like 15th place and he's just like celebrating.
Right.
And I think that that's what's going on with Dave Smith. I think that he's literally like people are stroking his ego. And again, he might have real fans, but I think that a lot of it is I think that a lot of it's manufactured because there are people out there with an agenda that want to frame a narrative and they will jump in and they will throw a bunch of bots under one person's post. And you know what? Also, to the point that we made earlier, when he's going on these platforms like Piers Morgan, Piers Morgan had Dave Smith on one side. He had the person that Dave Smith was supposed to be debating on the other side, and he's supposed to be in the middle as a moderator, right? Piers Morgan joined in on one side of the argument for an hour, and they tag teamed two different women.
Yeah.
Where it was when you have a debate that's 1 hour long and two people are talking over one person, that person like is going to get maybe, I would say, a maximum, if it's a fair debate, 33% of the airtime. But she didn't even get that. She probably got 10% because they just wouldn't stop filibustering, interrupting. And then Dave literally in these debates, I don't want to make this whole podcast about Dave, but you asked, Dave in these debates, he goes, before the fucking debate's even over, he's like, I won. Well, I won the debate.
And I did ask because I want to know. I want to know where you come from. I know where I come from. I know where a lot of people come from. In my opinion, I think, okay, the deal with people like Dave, for example, comedians, they're trained to be very quick, witty, snappy. They're comebacks, right? They think quick, they react quick, they talk fast. Dave was on national. I think it was on Fox or whatever. I forgot which news network it was. He would come on as a consultant or someone who would, like a talking head, basically once in a while,
like a contributor or something.
Yeah, basically. But we can't lie to ourselves. And I'm going to say this flat out: Dave would not be where he was if he wasn't Joe Rogan's friend. Period.
Exactly.
And in my opinion, I'm getting very tired of these comedians thinking that just because they're witty on stage, that they suddenly are authorities when it comes to politics and geopolitics. The guy doesn't know shit about geopolitics.
No, and Douglas Murray did a really good job of pointing this out to him. And you can tell it left a mark because Dave is still talking about that
He's
debate,
still shut up about it. Yeah.
He's like, I can't believe this appeal to authority. And then he makes the same appeal to authority to other people. Of course. He just came out and called out Rob Schneider and he goes, you're a comedian. You don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, bro.
Right.
Dude, what's up, Dave Murray?
Yeah.
What's up, Dave Murray? Like, what are you doing? You're literally... So anyway... And again, like, so Dave is a good general, like he's a good figurehead to sort of focus on the overarching broad issue of this false sense of confidence and how we're bolstering the dumbest voices who are not making actual intellectual arguments, but instead are dominating the clout market where they are getting boosted. They are getting fed positive affirmations for nonsense. Meanwhile, what they do is they try to beat down and silence anybody that's actually making an articulate and well-rounded argument. Like, Elika, I think her name is, the girl that was on the debate with Dave. Right? Look, you had two lawyers, right? You had an international lawyer. You had a lawyer. You had an Iranian who actually knows about the Middle East because...
Wasn't she also a journalist?
Yeah, she's overqualified for this conversation, right? And you have Piers Morgan who brings on Natasha Hausdorff, right? Who's again an international lawyer, way overqualified for this conversation, and all they do is scream and shout her down. Don't let her talk. Gaslight, abuse, and then they just go, "Look at what we did,"
right?
And it's like you shouldn't be proud of this, Piers. And also, one final thing that I was going to make a video on this. I got busy with work and everything. But before that debate that Dave was just on Piers, they had on this guy who's supposedly a professor at Tehran University, which is essentially meaning he's an Iran spokesperson. He's an IRGC spokesperson.
Okay.
Let's just call it what it is. He's a terrorist, right? He's an actual terrorist, right? There's no doubt about it. Piers Morgan asked him, he goes, are you proud of what Hamas did on October 7th? And he goes, yeah. Right? He goes, yeah. I mean, he goes, because, and then Piers is like, they killed Holocaust survivors. He's like, well, just because you survived the Holocaust doesn't mean you're allowed to settle in someone else's land. And it was like blatantly obvious that this guy is a terrorist, right?
Right.
And then Piers goes to Dave. Piers goes, I think he made some good points. I obviously don't agree with the bad things he said, but I think he made some good points. What do you think? And Dave's like, yeah, I think he made some good points. And I obviously don't agree with the bad things he said. Go, look, dog, here's the deal. If you ever have a fucking terrorist on your platform, the one thing you do not do is say they had good points, because this is the same argument as Hitler had some good ideas, but I don't agree with the genocide, right? It's like, bro, no. right? If you cannot universally condemn somebody who is out there in 4K saying, yes, I am proud of the rape, murder, slaughtering, and kidnapping of 1,200 plus people, right? You've lost the thread. And it's not about people are like, oh, you're taking him out of context. He only agreed with it. No, I didn't take him out of context at all. He agreed with a terrorist on some parts of the terrorist's argument.
I think Zach, the problem, I think the problem with people like Dave is they don't want to lose their base or the base of the sympathizers on the opposite side of the argument. They're trying to play the middle as much as they can so that they're always relevant and they're always, at the top of social media posts or whatever it is that they get their, whatever works for them. But Piers Morgan, we'll get off this in a minute, but the reality is if you're going to be a moderator, you need to be a moderator. You're not supposed to jump in and gang up. And that's what I saw with that other debate when you're talking about Oren, I forgot his last name.
Owen Schroyer. Yeah. It was a 3-on-1. They had 2 mod. When we started that debate, there was 2 other people in the little boxes. And I go, am I debating 2 people?
Right.
And the guy goes, oh no, I'm a second moderator. I'm like, you need 2 fucking moderators?
I saw that one because, I did watch a few of your debates because I wanted to see, I see the chatter and I was like, okay, let me see where he's coming from. Let me see what happened. Outside perspective, there was a couple where personally not an attack, but I don't know if you were fully prepared on some of them.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It happens, right? But there's others where I'm like, the one with Oren, it was like, okay, you're trying to make some good points. And this guy, I actually never heard of him. I'm not an InfoWar guy, but whatever. And he, everything that he was saying was nothing but based on conspiracy theories. He didn't have any real basis for his arguments.
Yeah.
And then he tried to tell you, or you're trying to make this argument about Jews being the problem, while he is trying to explain the root of the problem by also stating that the Jews are the root of the problem. You're like, what the fuck, dude?
I mean, this is the problem. This is the issue. Like, look, I wouldn't say I have respect for somebody like Stu Peters, but I at least can say that with Stu Peters and somebody like Stu Peters, right? He just says, I hate Jews, right? And I'm like, damn, why can't they all do that? Right? He wears it honestly. The argument that these people are not anti-Semitic, they're anti-Zionist, when there's 80 to 95% of Jews are Zionists, right? It's just, I'm just tired of the argument, right? So you got people like Owen Schroyer who gaslight and they go, this is bullshit. Just because you call out Israel doesn't mean you hate Jews. And then you criticize nobody else but Jews. And that's why I wanted to pin him down on Islam, right? Because if you have somebody, this is what I do respect. I respect somebody who goes, fuck them both, right? Like, I really do respect those people. I respect the people that go, fuck Jews, fuck Muslims. I don't agree with them because I don't see a problem with Jews, right? But I respect it. It's like,
well, at least they're making a hard stance, right?
You're going, fuck them both, right?
Yeah.
But when I tried to pin Owen Schroyer down on Islam, he goes, no, Qatar's one of our best allies. We have a military base there. I'm like, we got a military base in fucking Cuba, right? Like, we got a military base. Like, have you heard of Bagram? You remember those 13 dead service members? They were at a military base. So it's a non-argument, like Dave says. And then they don't see that what they're doing, right? See, with Hitler and shit, I'm drawing a blank right now. It's early. The Islamic leader back in 1940 something that sat down with him, the Muslim. They created this coalition because they had a shared enemy, right? The Jewish people, right? Islam is always going to hate the Jewish people. Hitler hated the Jewish people, and they came together. This is what I'm seeing with horseshoe theory, with the right and the left, who are coming together and coalescing around Jews, where I'm like, look, I'm not Jewish. I'm not Israeli. I don't give a fuck about Israel as far as like the government. I don't care. I don't care who the president is. I don't know how their system works. I don't know anything about Israeli politics, right? I saw on October 7th, 9/11 part 2, right? In a different country. And I remember 9/11. I'm old enough to remember 9/11. And I remember how other nations were standing with America and they were showing their support. And I go, yeah, let's return the fucking favor. Let's show our support with, like, they did this to us 24 years ago. So yeah, of course. Well, but back then it was 23 years ago.
How old are
and
you?
I'm 40.
All right, I'm going to be
So
47.
So I was 15 when it happened.
I remember I was driving to, I was a union painter for a little bit. I was driving down to the Bay Area, and then it was on the radio, and everybody was just like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. Me and my dad were driving. He came with his neighbor. It came on the radio. We were out running an errand, and we rushed back to the house and sat there, all three of us, and watched the TV, crying, And I was crying because my brother at the time, well, he's still my brother, but at the time, my brother was over in the Middle East, overseas, in the Marines.
Oh.
And I was like, my brother's going to die. I was like, he's going to die. He's going, because as a 15-year-old, you just know that war means people die. Anyway, he didn't, but it's a moment that if you lived it, you don't forget. And I think that the reason why there's this indifference to Islam is because it has been now 20-something years, and we have a brand new generation that just does not understand what that felt like.
The problem, okay, not disagreeing with you whatsoever. I think what people don't understand is they don't do a deep dive on the history, and they want to cherry pick the parts of history that makes all of this look good, right?
Yeah.
Islam, going back to when their prophet Muhammad was still alive, is when in around 1612, between 1612 and 612 to 622, is when they decided that, hey, we're going to expand and we're going to bring the world under Sharia law or under the Muslim way, right? Mm-hmm. And since then, it has not stopped. They never forgot their objective. It's still there.
I made a post. I made a post last night. I think it was. Somebody asked me, and they asked me in good faith. They weren't trolling, which is normally you get this question when somebody's trolling. They go, wouldn't killing people in the Middle East make more terrorists, not less? And I was like, no, absolutely not. And here's why. If you actually know history, right? There's been over 66,000 Islamic terrorist attacks in the past 50 years. They kill each other when there's no interventionism. There's been 1,800 attacks or 1,800 deaths just last year in 2024. It's like the idea that people that have spent like centuries murdering other people are murdering us because every once in a while when they get too crazy, we intervene and try to stop them is retarded. It doesn't make any sense, right? These people, Islam is a convert or kill death cult because the Quran states as doctrine that you need to kill infidels, and you need to, and it's an expansionist religion. It's a political ideology disguised as a religion, first of all, but it's IKEA instructions on how to take over the world.
Right.
That's what it is, right? And that's the thing. It's the exact opposite of Judaism, right? Where it's like Judaism, well, let's not even go with Judaism. Let's go with Israel, right? Let's just go with the modern state of Israel because people don't like when you get into the theology. Israel is an isolationist country. They don't want to expand. They never have. They're the same. They're at the same numbers they were at the end of the Holocaust as far as population. They don't grow. They just try to survive. They stay in their little dot in the Middle East. They have no real plans for taking over anywhere else. And if you look at Islam, if you look at a map of the Muslim nations in 1778. When the Ottoman Empire, the Barbaries, started their whole, modern expansionist movement, it looks like cancer spreading. They're everywhere now, right? They're in Africa, the Middle East, Europe. It's like, bro, how are people missing this?
Well, you're right. You're right. So, and also Palestine was never an actual country or nation. It was referred to as a region that was a collection of tribes and, sub-nations, I guess you would call them back then.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. That's what it was referred to.
That's what it still is. It's a region in Israel.
It is a region. Now, the history between, like you were talking about, Muslims and the Jews, or just the reality is that's an old war, old conflict that goes back to tribal
Isaac and
times.
Ishmael, Isaac and Ishmael. You can start there. It's two brothers had a fight, and 3,000 years later, we're all paying for it.
It just never stopped. And this whole two-state solution that keeps getting rejected was, I mean, they act like this was a new concept, and people are upset about it. First mentioned, I believe, like officially, like 1917, 1918, by the way, way before 1948, when the Israeli state was formed, right? Mm-hmm. And then it was introduced again, 1937, and then from there it just continued. I believe in the late 90s and 2000s, it was continually pushed and introduced, but constantly rejected because they don't want their piece of land, like they say. They want the whole area.
No, it's well. I mean, look,
river to the sea is what they say, right?
They've rejected the two-state solutions. They've started every war since the Arab-Israeli War in 1948. There's been the talking point is Nakba, right? Nakba was a reaction to the initiation of the Arab-Israeli War, which the Arabs started. And you want a two-state solution? I have one. There are already two states, Jordan and Israel. Put these people in Jordan, because I did a debate where the opposition leader to the king of Jordan told me straight up, he goes, "We'll take them." He goes, "Absolutely." You know, that was the original proposal.
They're Jordanian anyway. Proposal. The original proposal was when that split happened, was Palestine was literally part of Jordan. It was supposed to be part of Jordan. But a lot of people argue, well, they're not the same Palestinians. They don't have the same culture, same whatever. Great, but there's diverse cultures in Israel. We have diverse cultures here.
That's the Middle East in a nutshell. It's literally just a bunch of different iterations of Muslim. You know, like look at Iran. Iran, it's not. I hate when people do this, and it's ignorance. Dave Smith does it. A lot of people do it. Owen Schroyer does it, where they try to compare two different regions in the Middle East, like it's all the same. The Iranian people, there's so many. I would say the majority probably are against the IRGC and the Ayatollah. Yeah. So you don't have the same dichotomy as you do in Gaza, where Hamas has an overwhelming support of the Palestinian people. They took part in October 7th. The people did.
They do. They do to a degree. So
there's definitely opposition, and they're silenced and killed if they speak out. But I'm saying the percentages are way different.
No, okay, I'll agree with you there. What I was going to say is when Hamas came into power, though, they were originally voted in as the governing body to represent the Palestinian people.
Correct.
They were not originally just a terrorist organization. They weren't supposed to be anyway. They turned into that, and now they're using their own people that they rule as shields and as sympathy cards that they can pull against the world to say, "Hey, there's nothing. What are they doing? Our hospitals are getting bombed. We're being targeted. Like, why? Why are you killing our people?"
Yeah.
And they're the ones willingly putting their people in danger.
Look, there's a valid criticism for Israel's part in funding Hamas. There's valid criticism there's valid criticism for the CIA and George Bush going through regime changes in the Middle East and causing these people to do these things, right? But just like I told Owen Schroyer, I don't fucking care, right? Because once you look, like these people, they constantly try to find the root cause, which doesn't change the fact that in this moment, we have a terrorist organization doing terrorist shit. Do you think figuring out why it happened and telling them they're going to be like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry, man. I didn't realize we didn't have to cut people's heads off." No, they're doing these actions now in the current moment, right? And yeah, like, cool. Find out who killed JFK. I don't give a shit. He's dead. All right. Like, what are you doing now? We don't even know who tried to kill Trump. And you guys are like focusing on who tried to kill JFK. So what I'm saying is these people that try to hyperfixate on the root cause, they're ignoring the fact that right now, currently, Hamas engaged in October 7th, right? And the reason they did it is because they're a terrorist organization. Now, why are they a terrorist organization? Like that's what these people focus on. I just personally don't care, right? I don't care if Khamenei wasn't hugged enough by his mother. He's a fucking terrorist. Kill him, right? So that's my mindset of like the people that are blaming the Israelis. It's like, cool. Who cares?
But Iran became the largest state-sponsored terrorism in 1984. So the current regime was put into power in 79, right?
Yeah.
84, not too long after, all of a sudden, they're one of the largest state-sponsored terrorism. Here we are in 2025, and they still are.
Yeah.
They're using their proxies to do their bidding so that they can have a buffer.
Exactly. Like, at what point, how long of a pattern of behavior do you get to go through before you actually blame the people that are doing the shit that they're doing? Right? It's like, you guys, not you guys.
No, I understand.
Some people are just trying to justify terrorism because they don't like a certain people group, which is the Jews, right? So they're trying to justify the terrorism of the people that are committing terrorism. And then they're trying to blame the people that are engaging in anti-terrorism, right? Counter offensives. And again, I have no problem if you criticize Israel's actions, right? However, hold up a fucking mirror, because you got people like Piers Morgan who are like, this is a disproportionate response, blah, blah, blah. You heard of Operation Gomorrah, fuckface? Right? Like, Operation Gomorrah, the Royal Air Force, in conjunction with the Allies and the United States, dropped 9,000 tons of bombs on Hamburg, Germany, and they killed 40,000 civilians, innocent civilians. Yeah. They didn't care. Another 40,000 were injured. Another 250,000 were displaced. Nobody called it a fucking genocide because the Nazis needed to die, right? Like, so I don't understand how we've got this revisionist history of current history of right now what's happening, whereas you have actual history that they just ignore to use as.
Rook, let me interject. I think the issue is, Zach, is that the woke right, as you call them, I think they're just holding fast to kind of to America first. They say they are, but then they're not. But then they are. I think they pick and choose for whatever suits them, depending on who they're talking to. But what I see is nobody wants to go to war on the behest or behalf of another country right now, especially Israel. And a lot of people do not like the fact that the United States seems to be bleeding money, right, by funding all these other nations.
It's a fair.
And I understand that. When it comes to Israel, if we're looking at the USA numbers, there was signed into law basically that we, at a minimum every year, give them $3.2 billion. That's not the full amount we give them every year, but that's the minimum. They're supposed to use that to buy weapons and military aid, whatever, from us. But at the same time, we give above and beyond that $3.2 billion every single year. So I see where people are upset with that. Now,
they do offset that, right? But I don't like it. Look, here's the deal. I'm going to agree with people on this one, right? That disagree with me on Israel, right? Like in general, right? I don't see why we do that. It's basically money laundering. It's like, we give them the money, then we say, give it back to us. And then, it's a weird system of foreign aid. And we do it with other countries too, by the way. It's not just Israel, right? We do this with Islamic states.
I mean, we fund over 200, I think it was 240 countries and territories every single year.
Exactly. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't think that we should have it. Just like I don't like AIPAC, right? My issue is, why the fuck are you bitching about one and not the others, right? Or just don't bitch about. Look, here's the deal. If, like, I don't know if you follow Steven Crowder. I like Steven Crowder's argument, right? Steven Crowder usually comes in and he goes, AIPAC gave money to Hakeem Jeffries. Fuck AIPAC. But it's like, if you're mad about AIPAC, you should be mad about all the PACs, and you guys aren't. You're only focused on the one that's about the Jews. And I think that I don't think that that's necessarily, and this is what the conspiracy theories will say, I don't think that it's some nefarious favor, like handshaking, back scratching, grand conspiracy. I really do think it's just like a way of laundering money, where it's like nations do this because they can. It's just like slush funds and greedy corporations. I don't think it's that deep. But it is concerning that we give so much money to Israel. I don't think we should.
Well, it's already been proven that a lot of this aid, like you said, okay, money laundering. But it's already been proven that a lot of this does come back to other companies where we have Congress people who have vested interest in these companies.
Yes.
And then they later get a kickback via a, air quote donation for whatever they need. So yeah, there is corruption there. We can't deny that.
Look, and that's what I'm trying to say. If you have a problem with government corruption, we are on the same fucking team, man. But call it government corruption. Don't call it Israeli control of the government, right? Because it's not. It's the same level of corruption that the pharmaceutical industry has. It's the same level of corruption that the National Association of Realtors has, right? You think those California wildfires and Hawaii wildfires didn't have some nefarious shit going on? You don't think that there was somebody that was surveying it? You remember after the Hawaii wildfires, how the government came in and was like, hey, we're going to take your land, by the way. Hey, it's burnt down. You don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
Right? This shit happens, right? And I have a problem with all of it, including the shit that happens from the Jews, right? But I also have a huge problem when narratives are framed because of a political agenda where you ignore one thing. And it's like moral relativism, right? It's like the girl that, Elika, I think her name is, that was just debating Dave Smith, was trying to articulate this point where it's like, have a problem with all of it or have a problem with none of it. Because if you hyperfixate on one thing, you're being disingenuous.
Agreed. I believe the issue that a lot of people have with the U.S. involvement at all in the Middle East is trying to force Western ideals onto Middle Eastern principles. Yeah, it's never going to happen.
It's not.
We're just too far apart. I mean, we have some ties, as you said before, with Israel because of the Judeo-Christian, principles or outlook, right? But it's not the same. The West and the Middle East are not exactly the same.
They're not, and they're not going. We really do need to separate the cultures, right? It's just like you need to separate them in Gaza. You need to move those people to Jordan, and we need to do the same thing. I have called for a Muslim ban in America for a long time, not because I hate Muslims, right? I don't think that it is oil and Islam,
yes,
and a Judeo-Christian or even Western civilization cannot coexist. They just can't, right? Because their ideology is to change our ideology. Our ideology is not to change their ideology, right? Not in modern times anyway. Well, as Christians, you're supposed to preach the word of God, and hopefully, people come to Christ.
Well,
right?
I'm sorry, I was kind of referring to like the Crusades, and then the Roman times with the Catholic Church funding.
Yeah.
That's why I said not modern times.
More, I mean, dude, plenty of people have died in the name of Christ through wars.
In the name of religion in general.
In the name of religion in general, but I'm talking about in 2025.
Yeah.
Right. Like in 2025, you have countries in the Middle East where they can still stone a woman to death.
Yeah.
You have countries in the Middle East where they can still marry an 8-year-old. Right. Like this is not going to mix with modern civilization in the greatest country in the world.
No.
And you mentioned Judeo-Christian values. Yeah. Judeo-Christian values doesn't even necessarily have to apply to a religion. Our Constitution was framed based off of the Judeo-Christian principles of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Our Constitution mirrors the Ten Commandments, right? Our rule of law mirrors the Old Testament that Jews follow, and our I would say the structure of our personality is more New Testament, right? So we have law and then we have principles. And that's Judeo-Christianism. It doesn't mean Jew Christ. That's not what it means.
It's really a way of coining. It's a way of terming the relationship between the original Jewish beliefs and Western Christian values, and how they somehow meet, because both sides got entangled, the West and the East, through those principles. They're not exactly the same all the way down to a T, but they're very similar. And then the Ten Commandments, going back to what you said, I mean, that's the foundational principle of many nations when it comes to law.
Exactly. It's like almost I'm pretty sure that murder, right, is illegal.
Don't steal, don't kill. I mean, how can any culture live that?
Don't steal, don't kill. Don't rape, shit like that.
Basic things.
Basic things. Don't lie. I mean, that's the other thing, there's this there. If you follow the New Testament like I do, and the Old, but if you follow the New Testament, the thing that Christ hated more, and the thing that God hates more than anything, is lies. Right? Lying is pretty much the greatest sin, and it's in different iterations. Right? Like, don't covet thy neighbor's wife. Like that's a form of dishonest, like circumvention of trust. And then you have the Muslim religion, which literally tells you to lie. There's this practice of taqiyya.
Yeah,
taqiyya is if it moves your agenda forward on
it's literally hiding who you are.
Hide who you are.
Yeah,
right?
Until you have to reveal it. Until it's time to reveal it.
Exactly. It does not mix.
No,
it just doesn't.
You and I will agree. I've done many episodes on this, and I've done some posts where I literally have stated Islam is not compatible with the West, and I was attacked like crazy. But nobody can make the argument on how they are compatible. And everybody wants to say, well, you got it wrong. Not all Muslims are bad. Well, a Muslim, by definition, from what I found, I could be wrong, but from what I found, is someone who follows the Quran or practices Islam. That's who a Muslim is. The
exactly.
issue is, yes, there could be some good Muslims. Those who have modernized, who have progressed, and look at the Quran as, well, it's just like the Old Testament, right? Do we really live like the Old Testament? We're not stoning people. That was in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
But the culture progressed, and we realized we can't do that anymore. Now you have the extremist Islamist. That's the issue. And I think they're just using that to control people so they can just literally gain power. It's all about power and control. That's all it is.
Well, this is what I told Owen in our debate, right? There's about 2 billion Muslims, right?
And growing.
And growing.
Yeah.
And let's say 10% of them, right, are extreme, which it's more. It's actually more, right? A lot of people don't believe this, but it really is, right? You have Sharia practicing Muslims are somewhere between 5 and 9%, and then strict religious Muslims are like 40%. So you can come to a conclusion that the radicalized Muslims are probably somewhere in the double digits, 20%. It doesn't matter, right? But if it's 10%, right? That's 200 million people that want to cut your fucking head off.
Right.
And that's too many. That's way too many. That's 200 million people who have an ideology that they want to kill you if you don't convert to their way of life.
You're correct. It's always death to America, and not even just America, death to the West.
And then they go, but they chant that in Seattle.
Yeah,
we're gonna bomb Seattle.
I heard that. What a stupid fucking argument.
I was like, dude, the fact that you're trying to equate some, pampered trust fund baby liberal who's just repeating that because they heard it. It's just like versus a radical terrorist who will actually do it. Like the difference between the pink-haired liberal in Seattle and Muhammad guy over here is the Muhammad guy will set you on fire.
Literally, just like in Colorado.
He will throw you off a building. He will chop you to death. And the whole time, he will be screaming Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, I forgot the individual, but the one that just tried to burn those...
Colorado,
yeah.
With the Molotov cocktails. His name was Muhammad.
Yeah,
right? It's like, I'm like, you can't draw that motherfucker, but you name every
make
kid
it up,
after
man.
him.
You just can't. Let me make a point that backs up a little bit about what you said. So, extreme Islamists have been tied to terrorism. I mean, that's the whole basis and foundation for their movement.
They dominate the market.
Yep, I'm going to go to some facts and data because we're talking about possible attacks here in the U.S. What people are ignoring, they're saying you're full of shit, whatever. I have the terrorist screening data here from Customs Border Patrol, 2025 alone. And this is, you know what the TSDS is? It's the
remind me.
Okay, it's the terrorist screening data system.
Yeah.
So this has all the known terrorists, the people they know are terrorists. Mm-hmm. So the number they apprehended that they knew of, that they actually caught so far in 2025 of known terrorists is 772 just this year so far. That's enough to put about 15 or more terrorists in every single fucking state of the United States. And we've seen how small groups of terrorists can do a lot of damage.
How many did it take to pull off 9/11? Oh, the CIA did it.
A handful.
Yeah, the CIA did it. It's like I don't even care, and that's the other thing, right? This whole dismissal, right? This whole deflection of 9/11 was an inside job. It doesn't negate the fact that the terrorists got on a plane and flew a plane into a fucking building.
Yeah.
It's like you can't force somebody to do that. They wanted to do that.
What was crazier is there was. Sorry to cut you off. What's crazier is I know people literally, and they've been guests of mine that were in intelligence, literally working for the army. This is their job. They're in intelligence.
Yep.
These guys, one in particular, literally told me the story how they were given fair warning to the government about the chatter around 9/11 that had nothing to do with our own government. It was chatter by terrorist organizations. And then the dismissal of the two terrorists that were taking flight courses and training in Florida.
They
didn't care about landing the plane.
They were training in America. So look, my brother. I told you how my brother was in the Middle East when 9/11 happened. He called my mom the night before. I'll never forget this. He called my mom the night before and he said, "I don't know what's going on, but something's going to happen." Right? Because they had intel that they were about to do something.
Yes.
It's like, but it wasn't like, hey, Ma, I'm in the CIA. No, he was infantry, or he was recon. So he was force recon, and at the time, I'm not even sure that he had even completed the special forces training. So he might have just been a grunt. But he called my mom and he asked to talk to me too, and he just spoke to me. He goes, "Hey, bro," he's like, "I just want to say, in case anything happens, I love you." And I was like, and then the next day when it happened, that's why I started breaking down. Because I was like, all right, my brother just warned me that something was going to happen. 12 hours later, I'm looking at the buildings falling down. Something's wrong. Something's bad. So yeah, I don't even like going down these roads of validating people like Owen, but was there probably some, I would say CIA involvement? Yeah, probably. But you know what? We do that shit all the fucking time. Welcome to spy shit.
We do. We do.
You know, and I don't like it. I'm not just because I'm not ripping my hair out and going down rabbit holes doesn't mean I think it's cool or okay. And that's the other problem that you have with debate me bros, right? If you do not agree with them, if they cannot force you to accept their narrative, they immediately say that you're complicit, right? It's like, no, I'm not complicit. Here's the thing though, right? How much time do you put into this thing when you could be focusing on this thing? Because this thing is happening right fucking now, and JFK was killed 60 fucking years ago.
I understand where you're coming from, right? Yeah, they want to base all their arguments on these deep rabbit holes of conspiracy theories versus what can be proved and what's happening now. Yeah. I mean, we have a real situation. We've seen what's happened. Okay, let's just talk about this. We've seen what's happened in the UK, through consistent migration of asylum seekers, I guess. And now most of London is ran by a Muslim population. And they start just like it's happening in New York, where they get these people to say what you want to hear. They get voted into a position of power decision-making. And then once they got one in, they get the other guy and the other guy. And before you know it, you've lost. And look at what's happening in Ireland right now. The people over there are fucking pissed. They're done. The other day, my wife just told me about this. I didn't realize it was happening. They're fighting against migrants right now over there. They're done with the government. They're done with the invasion.
Yeah. That's why Conor McGregor is getting attacked so hard. I'm not like, look, I don't know about the scandals. I don't care about the scandals.
What, as far as Conor?
Yeah, as far as Conor. Yeah. I'm a fan of Conor McGregor, but if it turns out that he raped somebody, fuck him. All right. But however, my point is not that. My point is a person like Trump coming in and defying the odds in 2016 was because people were tired of what was going on in America. Somebody like Conor McGregor could fucking win the presidency in Ireland because people are tired. It's like, but the thing about what's happening in the UK, like you look at the rape statistics in Germany, you look at the stabbing statistics and the rape gangs in the UK, and you look at the common denominator, and it's like, it's fucking Islam. It's not, and they say immigrants. What kind? Like, there's a difference between the immigrants in America, which have come here from a bunch of different nations. And sure, yeah, we have a Haitian problem. We have a, like El Salvadorian, Venezuelan. We have, the Latin countries problem over here. But over there in Europe, their problem is way worse because that ideology that's taking over their nation, you can't vote it out, right? You have to fight.
Yeah, they're too dug in at this point.
Yeah, you cannot vote that out. If in the UK, I think is going to be, I would say, taken over by Islam, and it already kind of is.
Well, it's part of their playbook.
Yeah,
I mean, if they can't do it through violence and overpowering you with the military, which they really don't have because they're very segregated and broken people as far as who's in charge and who's going to do what, how else are they going to do it?
They're not stupid, man.
They're taking advantage of your system by playing on your sympathies. I mean, that's why everything that's going on with this exclusivity and DEI. They're using those two things to infiltrate the U.S. I mean, look at Dearborn right now. It's basically Somalia.
Well, exactly. And they even tried to change the flag so that it looked more like the Somalian flag.
I know.
And I'm like, guys, look, here's the deal. This whole anti-Israel woke right movement where it's like AIPAC, blah, 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 the fucking conspiracy theories. The irony that the majority of these people continuously talk about, this is a distraction. You're being distracted. You don't understand. Look, you don't see what the real picture is. While they don't understand what is actually going on, they are being played, right? They are useful idiots for a cause. And I think the cause is Marxism of accuse your enemy of what you yourself are doing, right? So all of and Doug Murray said it, that quote, I think it was Gail something, show me what you accuse the Jews of doing, and I'll show you tell me what you accuse the Jews of being guilty of, and I'll tell you what you're guilty of.
Oh, okay.
Right. So Islam and Iran and all that stuff, they're committing a genocide. They're trying to take over. They're doing this. They're doing that. And it's like, bro, that's exactly what Islam is doing literally everywhere.
Yeah, it's either you convert or you die.
Everything you're saying, the Jews and Israel, a country, by the way, I always have to bring this part up. It's the size of New Jersey.
9 million people? Is that what the population was?
9 million people.
Yeah.
They are 0.2% of the global population, 2% of the American population, whereas Muslims are 25%. Right? So we have based off of numbers and statistics, language, rhetoric, like the amount of terrorist attacks, we have a fucking huge Muslim problem and a very, very tiny Jew problem, right? And there is a problem there. There's the AIPAC thing.
I just hope, I already know everybody's going to watch us and say we're anti-Islam and, Islamophobic.
You're fucking right, I am. And I'm not even going to, look, here's the deal. I do not, Muslims, you said it earlier, right? There's a Muslim population that is peaceful because they ignore their own religious doctrine. They have made it into something that it is not. They have to ignore the parts of the Quran that command them to do certain things. They literally aren't their own religion. They are something else. And those Muslims are wonderful people. I know them. They're great. The vast majority of Muslims are great. But like I said, if 10% of them aren't, that's 200 million people that want to cut your head off. So I'm not anti-Muslim. I am anti-Islam.
No. It's the extreme, right? It's the extremists that are the issue, and it's equatable to me. Like, we don't live this way. Again, as I said, Old Testament, it was pretty cut and dry. But we don't live that way. We progress as a society or as a culture, and sure. some of those who practice.
I want to push back on that a little bit, though,
yeah, sure.
Because the argument that the Old Testament is, like the fire and brimstone thing. It's like, even in the Old Testament, God says, you save all of the judgment for me, right? Even God says, you do not enact your law and your rule over others, right? And then there's the parts of the Bible in the Old Testament where they're talking about how if a person cheats, you stone them to death. That was for specific tribes, and it was specific laws based off of specific needs, and like there's like the slavery thing in there. It's like there's a lot of nuance, and you need to contextualize it and understand it. But there is nothing in the Old Testament or the New Testament that commands a person to unjustly subjugate another person. Everything in the Old Testament can be contextualized for the time where it's there. You can explain it. You can't explain Islam.
So yeah, I don't.
It can't be.
I don't
it can't
disagree
be
with what you're saying.
contextualized.
Old Testament was okay. This is what I look at the Old Testament as. It was literally instructions and laws to keep a tribe together that didn't have a land. That's exactly what it was.
Correct.
And the things you just brought up with like the slavery, the stoning, those were what was happening at the time within certain tribes. So you gotta look at the time period. It's like, okay, yes, we had slaves in America a long time ago.
Yeah.
Was it the right thing to do? No, but it is what was happening. And people who lived through that period had to live through it. So there might be some statements, as you said, that could be taken out of context because you're not understanding what the individual is actually going through or the era they're living through. So I understand that.
Yeah, I agree. And then, but then again, like I said, the Quran, you can't, you're not allowed to contextualize it, right? Like in their religion,
you don't get to have your own interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you don't get to interpret the Quran, but you can interpret the Bible, then we have a big problem because, like I said, it's IKEA instruction. It's A goes into B,
right.
B goes into C, and you kill or convert any infidels. And I'm like, yo, that's the problem. Look, that's why I say I 1000% have a problem with Islam. I do not have a problem with Muslims. Islam is the religion. Muslims are a people. There's a problem with the system. That's not me being like Muslim phobic. That's 100% me being Islamophobic.
Well, let me ask you this before we move on from this topic. I mean, because look, there's never going to be an answer to this, but there really isn't. You and I, we agree on a lot of this. Some people are going to oppose it. But as you said before, I mean, there's a 3,000-year-old religious war, regardless, in the area. And everybody wants the Holy Land. Everybody has a claim to it.
Until Jesus comes back, it's not getting solved.
Right. But I'm going to ask you this. October 7th, I believe Israel had a right to retaliate. They should have. Anybody should. We would have. We probably would have obliterated them.
We would have done way worse.
Oh, I know for a fact we would have. Do you think at this point, though, is there any period where they take a step back and go, look, we made our statement. We let you know who we are. Should they reel it in a bit at this point? Do you think that? Or do you think, hey, you know what? Let them do what they got to do?
It's a good question. And it's a valid question because it has been over a year and a half. But again, what I will point to is in the Ukraine-Russia war, I think it was 7,000 soldiers died last week or the week before or something like that. Is anybody telling them to rein it in? Is anybody telling them to pull it back? It's a war, man. It's like, and listen, I don't know the ins and outs of the military operations going on in Israel. I don't know why they're doing what they're doing, right? And if it turns out that they are doing shit that they shouldn't be doing, and I can see the evidence, I will 100% be like, whoa, dude, no. But if we are only going off of media reports and we're only going off of Haaretz articles and Al Jazeera headlines, then no, I don't think that we have a right to tell any other nation how to fight their fucking war, right? Like, and the numbers that people are quoting, I don't believe are the numbers because you have the Ayatollah literally coming out last week or this week and saying, look at what we did. We killed this many people. We did, and it's a fucking lie. He got his ass handed to him. Takia, literally lying is part of their doctrine. So when they say, oh, 50,000 civilians, a lot of them women and children, blah, 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 bullshit. I don't, by the way, if you take one fucking look at Gaza, any reasonable person will be like, Israel definitely killed civilians. I mean, well, yeah, 1,000%. And do I like it? No. But do I necessarily like that we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Not really. Am I okay with it? Yeah. Because I think that it saved more lives. I think when you take out civilians and your goal is to save more lives in the long run, that's war, and war is hell. So I just don't think that we're in a position, especially with the shit that we've done, to tell anybody to pull it back or rein it in.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I believe that this is where the whole argument of the morality of the situation always comes in from guys like Dave Smith. Yeah. They can argue the morality of it all they want.
It a false binary.
It is, but war is hell, as it's been said. War is hell. In war, someone like Dave, if someone ran behind him, pushed him down, started raping him with a broomstick, is he going to try to argue the morality of it when he turns around and slaps him in the face?
Yeah.
Let's just be real.
Well, I mean,
he's going to have a reaction. He's going to have a violent reaction.
I came up with an analogy a while back. Let me see if I can remember it because it was a good one, but I think I only used it once. Okay, here's October 7th in an analogy form, right? I think it was Anna Kasparin, the Young Turks chick. She made this analogy like there's a gunman holding a gun to your grandmother's head, and the cops show up and they shoot the grandmother to kill the gunman, right? And that's not what's really going on. Here's what really happened, all right? Hamas, the gunman, okay?
Right.
They actually went in and they killed that woman's whole family, right? Then they took her back to that house where they were holding her hostage. And they locked her in a room and they didn't tell anybody which room she was in. And then from the window, they went out and they yelled, "I'm going to do it again over and over and over again. And as soon as you leave, I'm going to kill the rest of her family and I'm going to kill your family too. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that." And then at a certain point, when do you blow up the house? Right? Like when do you say, "Hey, look, shit." I mean, we don't want this to happen again. And sure, and by the way, the hostage in this situation, the analogy doesn't really work in her interpretation because she's saying that the hostages are the Palestinian people and the real hostages were the actual Israeli people. But they're using human shields while constantly saying that they're firing rockets also, by the way, right? Yeah. Anyone who doesn't
constantly almost, right? Seems like
it's hundreds a day, yeah. Right? So dozens a day now, but at one point it was hundreds a day.
It was.
I think that at one point it was 7,000 rockets, right? And it's like
I believe you're right on that one.
At what point do you say, "Yeah, I kind of am okay with killing civilians if it stops this shit"? And that's my argument. Is it a moral one? No. Is it a pragmatic one? Yeah.
That's a tough one. It's a tough one to agree with or disagree with because.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Dave has this false binary where it's like, no, killing wrong. And it's like, and that's the thing. The woman that he was debating on Piers Morgan, she goes, "You're trying to make an equivalency between these two people, right? Israel and Gaza, or Hamas, I guess you could say, right? And it's like that's like trying to make an equivalency between a cop and a robber because they're both pointing guns at each other and they're both in fear for their lives. And it's like, no, one of them is a terrorist organization. The other one is a legitimate government that is abiding by all international law and rules of war. I mean, and if they don't, then that's why we have these organizations. I don't believe anybody wants to see innocent people or civilians killed. Yeah, nobody wants to.
These people are unfortunately caught in the middle between two governing bodies. Sure. I wish that the governing bodies, the leaders, would just get in the fucking ring and fight it out and leave the people out of it. But that'll never happen.
But this is. Yeah, I mean, where are the Hamas military installations? Where exactly are there military installations? They're in apartment buildings. They're in hospitals. They're in schools.
Right, and then that's what I was going to get to is that all the hospitals they claim that are being destroyed. Like how many hospitals are in Gaza, by the way?
They just keep on popping up.
I mean, at some point, I forgot what the percentage was, but someone made a point. Don't quote me on this because I can't recall it all, but they were saying like something like LA or whatever, some county, there was like 26 hospitals within a certain area. And then you got Gaza that has over 200 hospitals somehow, and it's a much smaller area. It's like, is this not just a practice of deception in war?
Well, here's another question nobody's really asking, right? Gaza is just a few miles, really. Like
it's a small strip.
It's a small
relatively,
strip, right?
Yeah.
Relatively, it's a really small strip.
Isn't it like 3 miles?
I think it's about
like
3. Yeah, I think it's about 3 miles. Okay. So now October 7th was over a year and a half ago. Okay.
Yeah.
How long does it take for somebody to walk 3 miles? Because I know it doesn't take
long.
I know it doesn't take 2 fucking years, right?
No.
So as soon as the first fucking bomb went off, right? If I was a Palestinian, I would be like, I'm not going out into the, like, I don't care, into the ether. I'll build a treehouse somewhere, but I'm not fucking staying here. So why are civilians there, right? Why are they there? Because Hamas won't let them leave.
No, they won't let them leave. That's a good point that nobody ever brings up. The argument is like, well, it's their land. Why should they leave their own home? Well, they're not given the opportunity.
Bombs. That's why.
Yeah, the bombs and Hamas won't let them go.
I love San Antonio. I love my apartment. I love where I live. My neighborhood is fucking awesome, right? If a fucking bomb went off tomorrow, you know what I would do? I'd fucking leave.
Out. Yeah.
That's a really good reason
Head
to
on
leave.
a swivel really fast and figuring it out, right?
Why would you leave? No, that's the dumbest argument ever. They're standing there because they're fighting.
The other question that has never been answered is, they blame Israel for the aid never getting to the Palestinian people. Answer why, before all this happened, that Hamas and the leaders of most extremist Islamist governing bodies always seem to get rich from the aid that is given to that country, but yet the people always remain poor and hungry.
Exactly. Well, no, take it one step further.
Sure.
Right? Why is Israel required to allow aid in there? Right? No other nation in history is required to feed their enemy, right? Like, and for some reason, this one is. Now, I think they should, but my question was why, right? And here's the answer: because they're not feeding their enemy; they're feeding their own fucking people. Because Gaza is in Israel; it's not a country; it is in Israel. Israel has a moral obligation to get aid in there. And they have an absolute right to restrict it, to inspect it, to use it as a bargaining chip. Because guess what? It's technically a civil war. It's technically a region in Israel firing at the main body of Israel. So I don't have any problem if Israel were to be like, you know what? No food until you stop fucking around. But that's not what they're doing.
Well,
they're actually allowing the aid in. They're just allowing it in under their terms.
That's an interesting take, but the reality is, okay, Israel relinquished its control of Gaza, I believe, 2006, somewhere between 2005 2006.
Control, not ownership.
Fair enough, but they're not supposed to be controlling it, right? Okay,
no,
so
not.
Hamas is the governing body of the Palestinians. So any negotiations should be between the Israeli government and Hamas.
Yeah,
they should be coming to the table to say, hey, we need water, we need electricity. Where are we going to get it from? We're kind of cut off. Can you help us out? But they don't do that. So I get your point, but it's all about optics, I believe. And that's the bigger reason I believe that they're being forced to do this. Do they have to? No, in war you don't have to. But I think it's really comes down to what you said. It may be them taking care of their people, or just realizing, look, there's innocence here that shouldn't be caught in the middle of all of this. And I believe that they see that. The world sees that. The problem is, terrorists fight dirty. Period.
Mm-hmm.
They fight dirty. There's no playbook for this. Everybody who's arguing what Israel's doing
with them.
Yeah, no, everybody's arguing what Israel's doing, right or wrong in a war, are the people that are even involved in it.
Okay, so by the way,
they haven't been in it.
Yeah, but
you said that I would just put that out there. So.
you said that Israel should be negotiating with the governing body of Palestine.
Well, both ways is what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure. No, and they should, right? But if it's a government, what's their currency, right? Their currency is the Israel shekel and the dinar, right? They don't have their own currency. They don't have a real president. They got the Palestinian Authority, and they got this like fake president. Their leaders are in Qatar, in Gaza, but they don't have a real government. They have a group That's
okay. I'm sorry.
kind of
Let's call them a
cosplaying as-
representative body.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. No, and you're right. Right. But so that's what I mean by I'm saying it's a civil war. It would kind of be like the governor of Texas are like negotiating with the president of America if there was a succession, right? Like, so that's the better analogy. And I'm not saying that you made a different analogy. I'm just making a point of clarification so that people understand that you don't want to create this idea that these are two sovereign nations that are.
Oh no, I'm not doing that.
No. I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you are. Right. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of people that frame this as if Israel should or has to negotiate with these people as if they were a sovereign state. They're not. Right. So it's a completely different. It's a weird situation, right? You have Ukraine and Russia, right? Two countries, right, fighting over a land grab. And I would make arguments against both of their leaders as far as corruption and as far as how they've handled the situation. I don't see a good guy there. But what they really are, what they're both fighting for is their people. I will say that. I think that they are both fighting for their nation, right? The war in Israel is a completely different animal because it's an ideological war. It's not a political war. It's not a war for the people. It is a war for ideology. You have one side that they want to kill the other side. They don't want to negotiate. Then you have the other side who has to negotiate with people who want to kill them, right? And it's completely different, right? So I just don't see how you look at it, not you, but some people look at it through a normal lens of previous conflicts. There's no comparison, and I think that's an important distinction to make so people understand when they make the argument.
Well, I think in the end, the issue with this whole conflict is I believe many people just think Israel went too far at this point.
And I
think that's what it is. I think that's what people are hung up on.
Look,
and it's a pretty big hang up. I mean, I'm not trying to make this seem like a small issue. It's just I think that's where it lies.
And I'm not making excuses necessarily for Israel. But I have said this since the beginning of this war. I have a dog in the fight because, I believe in the Abrahamic covenant, right? I am a Christian who is observant of the Old Testament, which I think most Christians should be. So I think that I have a duty to stand up for the Jewish people, not a modern nation state of Israel, just because it shares the same name as some place in the Bible. But I do know that, you got 9 million freaking Jews over there. And I'm like, hey, I got to kind of take a side here. But I have been of the mindset that they haven't gone far enough, right?
Okay.
Not because I think that it would be, what's it called? Reaction, not like because I think that it would be like, George Bush going into Iraq and being like, you killed our people. I'm saying, I think that they should have done a consolidated, just massive attack right away. And I think the situation would be over by now. I think the mistake they made was not going far enough early. And now they're sort of dripping out these attacks and prolonging it and stretching it out. And it's giving the appearance of a disproportionate response, when in actuality, they could have just bombed the whole region, had the exact same amount of deaths that they have spread out over the past, 18 months or whatever it is. And people would probably have gotten over it by now. So that's where I think that a lot of people are getting that notion.
I think what Israel was trying to do was get rid of the root of the problem, going back to that statement, which was the terrorist organization, which was Hamas. So they were trying to do strategic attacks, strategic missions and operations to get those individuals. Mm-hmm. So that's why this has been dragging out. And you're correct. Yeah. They could have just obliterated Gaza. But they would have been literal war criminals, because then we're looking at wiping out the innocents. And unfortunately, they're trying to walk this tightrope of, look, we need to take care of this. I can give a fuck less, versus we need to strategically take out Hamas, who's the instigators and the people that are driving this entire thing.
Well, exactly. They're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't, right? Because what you said is that would have been a war crime. I don't think so. No? I don't think that would have been a war crime. No. If If you had October 7th happen and Bibi said, drop a bomb on Gaza and get rid of that 3-mile strip of land right now, I don't think that's a war crime. And he would have literally said, he would be like, call all 250 hostages' families and tell them, I'm sorry, but your family member is not coming home. They're going to be a casualty of war.
I think it would have been a war crime if they did that. But here's what they could do, and what they have done, by the way, Zach, which does support your argument, is they have given the people fair warning. They have said, hey, evacuate, take shelter. This is happening. The problem, though, is, as you mentioned earlier, is Hamas won't let those people leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so again, it's an impossible situation. John Spencer breaks this down in several different articles that he's written, where he talks about the complexity and how this has never happened before in any modern warfare, where there's been some comparisons to embedding in civilian areas in Nazi Germany, et cetera, but this level of consolidation while simultaneously not allowing the people that are there to leave with the intent of having them as human shields, it's never happened throughout history. So Israel's negotiating something that's never been, they're navigating a course that nobody's ever gone down. And I don't know. I think I don't think, again, that we have a right to play armchair quarterback when they're the ones that have to decide what's best for their sovereignty. Like again, we literally bombed. We bombed Hiroshima, and we said to the Japanese, "Are you done?" And they said, "No, fuck you." And then we bombed Nagasaki, and we said, "Are you done now?" And they went, "Yeah, all right." Right? So I don't understand how it's a war crime when you can justify the same justification that we used in that operation. More people will die if we don't do this.
Okay, hold on. We're not arguing, by the way. What I'm going to say is I think the difference being is we know better now, right? So those bombs that were dropped, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, we didn't really understand the entire situation or what would happen dropping an atomic bomb, for example. We didn't know what the fallout would be. We had no idea the actual impact. We had studies, we had tests, but no one's ever dropped one before. That's why now, everyone's so hesitant to do it again because we know the difference.
I'm not even saying that they should have nuked Gaza, by the way.
Oh, I'm just saying the difference between that situation is now is really, we know better. We know the ramifications. We know what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, you don't drop a nuke 3 miles from your house.
Well, no, fair enough.
No, but look, like I think that I'm not a military strategist, so I shouldn't even be talking about this because I'm really just opining. I'm just a contractor that's giving my opinion. So, could I be wrong 100%? Am I? There's a huge possibility I'm wrong. I'm a contractor, right? But I do read. I read the John Spencer articles. I try to be as educated as I can on this, and I'm offering my opinion because you asked me a question. But here's what I will say, right? I know for a fact that based off of my research that the civilian to combatant ratio in this particular war is either on par or below other comparable conflicts. I know for a fact that Israel is telling these people. I have so many friends in Israel. They're like, they've given me this information over the past 18 months. Israel is sending out leaflets, sending out mass texts, sending out sirens. So every time they try to bomb a target, they do everything they can to give these people a heads up, which is also giving the terrorists a heads up. So I don't see from a 3,000 foot view, I don't see them going like you said, like too far. I see them. I see them trying to thread a very small needle, and I don't know. And hey, look, if it turns out, like I said, if we look back on this in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, right? If we get all the information after the fact and we find out that Israel actually was just indiscriminately bombing people and they lied to all of us and everything like that, I'm going to be their first critic because I have no loyalty to the nation state or governing body of Israel. I have a loyalty to the Jewish people because I believe in the Abrahamic covenant, right? And anybody that's doing shit like that some people are accusing all the Jews of, even though it would just be a small part of a government, which probably has corruption in it because every government does, you're not going to get any argument from me, right? I don't have a blind loyalty to anything other than the Bible. And I mean, I would say pretty much the Constitution. Because the two books that I really follow without asking questions are the Constitution and the Bible.
Okay. So I'm going to say something that I'm sure is very controversial because this is what I think. I say let Israel start and end their own wars, man.
Yeah.
You know, if they want to start something, let them end it. If someone attacks them, let them retaliate.
Sure.
And they're going to have to deal with the consequences on how they handle that. That's my opinion of it. And I understand they're one of our greatest allies, and we're always going to be there to, protect our little brother, as they say.
Sure.
But at the same time, I mean, at what point do you let them just stand on their own? At what point do you just say, look, here's your situation. This is what happened. Do what you got to do. But we always have to get involved.
I think that argument doesn't hold water because it's not just their war, right? And it's not just because the same people that they're fighting chant death to America and death to Israel. It's more of our interests are their interests. So I would say that when a lot of people are looking at it like they're our ally, they're our little bro, and they're a friend, so we got to go fight because of them. And I don't think that that's the way to look at it. I think that when they fight somebody, we have an opportunity to jump in for our own benefit. And that's the way I view it, right? Where it's like, hey, man, fucking like, hey, Timmy over there is fucking up that dude that said he was going to fuck your sister. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go over there and fuck him up too. Because right, I also don't like that guy, right?
Here's your counter. Okay. I understand what you're saying because it's true. We do look out for our own interests. Israel is very strategic for us in terms of a military position within the area, period. Mm-hmm. We have a presence with an ally that we don't have anywhere else in the Middle East, not to the level we got with Israel.
Sure.
But my argument is there has been times where Israel's gotten into conflicts with other nations that might upset the geopolitical relationships if we get involved, especially when we're talking about resources, more to the point like oil, et cetera. So I think that's my point. I'm not saying that you're wrong because yes, we do have to protect our interests. But if our ally is putting us in a position that pretty much fucks up the relationships we have or that the negotiations we have with other countries, it kind of does get sticky. At some point, you got to be like, hey, you need to chill the fuck out.
Look, absolutely, right? And this is the exact same argument I would make against Zelensky, right? True. Where it's like, look, man, freaking... I don't even consider you an ally, but everybody else does.
Right.
So, like, look, we're going to get your back with Putin. But when you start pulling some shit, you're on your own. And so I think that's a very valid argument to apply to Israel. Because you don't just blindly, like again, all right? So the analogy with Timmy is in a fight with the guy that said he wants to fuck your sister, right? Yeah, okay. So we both want to fuck that guy up. But if Timmy just starts getting into a fight with some random dude at the bar who did nothing wrong, we're not backing up Timmy. So that's right. The analogy, right? Where it's like, if Israel's interests align with our interests, then sure, Absolutely. Why not get involved? If Israel's interests do not align with our interests, leave them the fuck alone and let them do it themselves.
So there's the clarification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Understood. Let's get off this topic for a bit because we've been at it for a while.
Sure.
And agree. I want to get to some of your social media stuff if you're okay with that. All right. So as you said earlier in the beginning, is you do call people out, because you believe, hey, they're getting away with running their mouths, but not really, backing up with any real facts or just, they're being bolstered by their fans. Yeah. You've also, let's do this first because you've said this on social media. Can you please, because I don't pay attention to it much. To me, woke right. You said a little bit in the beginning, but can you kind of define it better? Because I'm trying to understand it, and there's a lot of other people that have opinions on what it actually means.
Yeah. See, look. So I was calling out the woke right, and I was calling them the woke right in like 2021. James Lindsay bless his heart. I like James Lindsay. He's sort of become the figurehead and the spokesperson for this whole calling out the woke right movement. But he makes it a very intellectual argument, and he tries to, in my opinion, complicate it way too much. And people really get lost in the definition. Here's the definition. This is the dumbed down version, right? The woke ideology, right, was started by the Black community when they were saying that they are being oppressed, right, by the white man. And now we are awake, we are woke. You have your boot on our neck, and we have woken up, right? So that's where that comes from. So it is an oppressor oppressed victim mentality that is responsible for movements like BLM, Antifa, etc. Okay, that's woke. Now, the left side of the argument, where you say woke left, right? So you have oppressor oppressed, and then you have what their ideology is. How do you fix it? How do you fix the oppressor oppressed relationship, right? And it's I would say like socialism, Marxism, like whatever. Then you have the woke right. Now there is an oppressor oppressed, right? Globalists, Jews, they have the same like victim mentality, right? Like this people group is responsible for all of our problems, right? A lot of conspiracy theorists, truthers, they think that there's this grand conspiracy against them. But what is their solution to the problem, right? So on the left you have socialism, on the right you have nationalism and isolationism. So you have two sides of the same coin. You have a victim mentality, oppressor oppressed. We are waking up. What do the groypers call themselves? Noticers.
You're right. Yeah.
Notice, wake, woke, notice. Same. They're synonyms. So woke right essentially means an oppressed group of people that wants to fix the dynamic by being isolationists or nationalists, right? They basically have decided we are oppressed by insert here. Usually it's the Jews. Usually it's the globalists. And the way to fix this problem is nationalism, right? Or Christian nationalism, freaking whatever. It's the same exact thing the left says. The left says we need to get rid of capitalism. We need to redistribute wealth. We need to have reparations, et cetera, et cetera. They're so similar. The only difference is how they want to attack the person they think is responsible for all of their problems. So that's woke right in a nutshell. It's the best way to describe it. Now, here's the thing. You can also just not call them woke right? Because you can call them dissident right. You can call them reactionary right. You can call them far right, radical right. You can call them any other thing that you want, right? But if you really are breaking down what they are about, woke right is the most accurate terminology because it defines the oppressor oppressed narrative, right? There is some weird obsession with not being accountable for your own shit, right? It's like, sure, are there bad people? Is there, psyops going on? Is there conspiracies? Are there some Jews that are bad people? Yeah, sure, right? But you don't fix the problem by essentially trying to impose radical ideologies on the rest of the world.
They're just right? two sides of the same coin, really, then.
It's just radicalism as a solution to a problem. That's what it really is. It's radicalism as a solution to a problem, right? It's like the far left are, and by the way, the horseshoe theory is just a lucky coincidence, right? The woke right and woke left, like I said, the definition is just oppressor oppressed. Here's how to fix it. Get radical and impose your views. Think about horseshoe theory, though, right? First of all, you have the both sides hate the Jews, right? So,
right.
and then you have Marxist ideologies, right? Like, so you have on both sides, right? You have a desire to impose your ideology on the other people. So what does the left want to do? The left wants to make abortion legal up until birth, right? What does the right want to do? They want to get rid of every abortion, right? They want you to not be able to get one, right? They are extreme views. They are literally the far sides of both sides of this argument, and most people are in the middle. They are not the majority. They're not the base. They're not.
No, they're not.
And the thing is, here's the difference between these sides, by the way. The right, as far as I can tell, is rejecting their woke. The left is electing them
embracing it
as the mayor of New York City.
Yeah, they're embracing it. They're running hard with it.
So if you want to, like, look, I'm not taking all the credit. I'm not taking most of the credit. I'm taking some credit, though, because I've been blowing the whistle on this for a while. I'm one of the biggest voices against it. And from what I can see in the online space, the top generals of the woke right seem to keep having a fucking problem with me.
Right.
They're the ones that keep on trying to attack me. So I say this all the time. I'm like, please, for the love of God, if you do nothing else, judge me by my enemies.
Let's talk. Okay, that's good, because I was always a bit confused. I'm like, how? It's like, what does it actually represent? Because there's always, like far right, extreme right, woke right. Like there's all these terms. Yeah. Like whatever, man. I can't keep up with it all.
It's important not to complicate. It's important not to complicate it. Like in the debate I had against Andrew Wilson, he lost on substance. I mean, I'm sure that he took a victory lap, but he tried to call them reactionaries, right? And
reactionaries.
They're not really reactionaries, right? Reactionaries have a complete justification for an actual problem. There is sure, like I said, there are globalists, I guess, there are New World Order people, but to state that 2% of the 0.2% of the global population is responsible for all of your problems. Nick Fuentes was on InfoWars, and Alex Jones asked him, if you were to take every Jew and just send them to the moon, do you think all your problems would go away? And that motherfucker said yes.
That guy's a fucking idiot, man. I'll just say it. I can care less. I can care less how people feel. Look,
but think about a reactionary is reacting to a real issue, right? Somebody like Nick Fuentes.
And then you got Candace, with her views.
Yeah.
She's kind of going down that path. Well, she isn't kind of. She is going down that path.
She's lost.
Yeah, she's definitely turned a far.
And then you got people like Tucker Carlson, MGT, Russell Brand. You got all these people that are flirting with it. And when they start flirting with it, right? You see them flirting with it just a little bit. Right? They creep out a little bit and they go, actually, you really do have a valid argument about the money that we send to Israel. And then it gets a little bit more and a little bit more. And then they start getting a little bit more conspiratorial. And then it's like, you can just see the progression. And then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah, they spiral. They spiral.
And it's like, I'm telling you, Charlie Kirk said it really well, right? Anti-Semitism is brain rot, right? It really is. It's like and then, they're like, I'm not anti-Semitic. Yes, you are. Let's say anti-Zionism then. Anti-Zionism is brain rot, because I can say this 1,000 times, and I'm sorry to keep repeating myself, but repetition is how you get through to dumb people. I'm not talking to you, talking to maybe somebody who's watching. 2.2 fucking % of the global population is not responsible for your fucking problems. It's a retarded statement.
I agree.
That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. What about? But they're disproportionate in the tech industry. Yeah. I know. All right. So the 25% of billionaires are Jewish. Okay, they're good with money. Chinese people are good with math. Black people are good at basketball. Who cares? It's a stereotype. It's not a conspiracy, it's a stereotype.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it. And the reason is because after some dickhead in a funny mustache tried to exterminate them, when they got expelled to America, they started getting into industries at the perfect time before they blew up. They got into the tech industry, they got into the Hollywood industry, the film industry, and because of their religion and their faith and how they're family oriented, they created generational wealth and handed it down to their children. And because they didn't trust anybody, because again, somebody tried to fucking exterminate them, they kept it very tight knit and they don't allow other people in. They are an exclusionary religion now because of how many people that have tried to fucking kill them.
But there's many cultures who do that. Like I can just talk about people from India because I've done a lot of business with them in the entertainment industry, for example. And there's a lot of that going on. As far as concerts with artists coming in and they're doing these big arena shows. And I've got to know them, and their families will do this. Like you see them buy a gas station or hotel. Well, that individual gets that funding, but guess what the entire family does? The entire family works it. They build up
Exactly.
one, and then they buy another as a family. We don't do that.
What about Greeks? Greeks do the same thing.
You're right. I'm just saying, other cultures do that. So let's move off of let's move off of the woke, right? Because well-defined, thank you. But what do you think of what's going on? Because you do identify as MAGA. What's up with all this infighting? And then let's also talk about people like Laura Loomer, for example. Yeah. And I know you've had some opinions on her. I'll just give you the floor and let you go because I'm so back and forth with. This is why I hate Laura. I hate Laura because I like Laura, right? I hate her because I like her. Every once in a while, I'll be like scrolling and I'm like, fuck. Right.
It's like I almost hate that she gets it right because here's the thing. Again, right? I am completely objective when it comes to calling people out. I don't really if my best friend said something stupid, I would comment under it, right? So I don't have this thing that other people have where it's like tribalism, where you're like, oh, this person that follows these people that follow me said something stupid. I don't want to say anything because I don't want my friends to get mad at me for calling out their friends, right? So with Laura Loomer, I called her out for the things that she did wrong, right? What she did was she said that Joe Biden was going into hospice, Jimmy Carter was dead. She doxes people that are, anti-Trump. She goes in, she calls it investigative journalism. Every time somebody comes against Trump, she tries to find out what their fucking family does for a living. And then she floods their inbox. It's cancel culture. I don't like it.
It is.
I do not like cancel culture. I don't like it when anyone fucking does it. I was canceled by the woke left. I've been canceled by the woke right. It is not something you guys want to go through. I have a stack of police reports from all the credible death threats I've gotten. People have showed up to my house. I've been had the cops called on me twice. They've tried to get me kicked out of this apartment. They've done some crazy shit to me. They put me on the Nextdoor app as a pedophile. When you put somebody's information on the internet and you put it out there with a negative inflection, right? Bad person, here's their name.
Well, okay? you're trying to intentionally cause harm, not just to them,
Correct.
But their entire family, to their relationships, their job, everything.
And I don't give a shit what you think about Laura Loomer. She fucking does that, and she needs to stop.
She does.
However, like I said, this is why I hate
Love
that I
hate,
like her.
Right?
Because she does good stuff. She puts out good information sometimes. Well, she gets some things right.
And I'm going to equate that to like Alex Jones. You throw enough shit at the wall, something's going to stick.
Exactly. Okay? Listen, I just did this with Sean, on my podcast with Sean. I was in that debate with Owen Schroyer. He's like, "How did Alex Jones predict 9/11?" And I'm like, "I don't fucking know." And he's like, "It's a script." I'm like, "Yeah." Or he said terrorists are going to do terrorist shit because the World Trade Centers were attacked. I thought it was a plane, by the way, but it was a bomb. He's like, they were attacked in '93.
Yes.
And then Osama bin Laden. Everybody knew who he was. They knew that they wanted to attack. So Alex Jones said they're going to attack the World Trade Centers, and Osama bin Laden's going to do it. But then here's what he did to frame the narrative. He said the CIA did it. Yeah, but no. You see, so he didn't necessarily technically get that whole thing right, but they believe that because he got a portion of it provably right, which is they flew planes into the World Trade Centers.
True, but how much?
Then they believe the whole thing, though. They believe it blindly because if you get most of something right, but then you add in a caveat and you can't prove that second part,
right?
People believe the whole thing. So what he does is actually dangerous because he creates these paranoid, delusional people who think that there's some person in a black hat that's going to like shoot him in the head when they walk out of their house.
How much of what he gets right is due to whatever source he has where he gets this information? Because like you and I had discussed earlier, and I found out later, through some of my contacts, is like there was chatter going around in the intelligence community that this was going to happen. How do we know he just didn't get that leak didn't get that information?
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Right. But like I said, my brother called my mom the night before. So they knew. Like the government knew. And the government, this is the other thing about these people. Some people act like the government is supposed to tell you when something bad is going to happen. No, that would create mass hysteria.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, no, like they did this with Trump. Trump was like, there was supposedly a threat and attack, and the media was like, why didn't you tell us? He's like, fuck it, you guys would have lost your shit. And he was honest about it. No other president has ever come out and said, yeah, I held that from you because I didn't want you to freak out. So again, like, yeah, Alex probably has some good context. This is exactly what Laura Loomer does. Laura Loomer does not do journalism. Laura Loomer has a group of simps that do journalism, and they send it to her inbox, and then she just reads it and then drops it on her platform, right? And I'm sure that she does her own research a little bit. But for the most part, I think what Alex Jones has is he has the same thing. He has a network, right? When you have a network, when you're a social media influencer, are you really doing journalism, or are you the anchor that's reporting the story that your journalist gave to you?
Well, that's okay. And that's been my argument against guys like, Chris Cuomo, people from that era. They're just talking heads. They're reading off a fucking teleprompter. They haven't been relevant journalists in years.
Well, look at what Alex Jones's show is, right? So look, let me do this. I'm going to do Alex Jones's show, InfoWars. This is what he does.
Let me give you the cam shot here.
I got a tweet here. This is what this tweet says. I got a tweet here. This is what this tweet says. I got a tweet here. It's like, that's all he's doing. He's an anchor. He's a news anchor. That's like, he's not a fucking, and he's not a mentalist, right? He didn't I think that I think
he's probably good at connecting the dots. You know what I mean?
I think, yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think that I'm really good at that too. I think that I have a lot of critical thinking skills. I'm able to, see things that may or may not be happening. I mean, I basically predicted that the Zohan guy was going to win the New York City election hours before it happened. I'm like, maybe he's going to win because, I mean, honestly, I think that New York might be better off for it. I think that it's
a taste of your own medicine.
Hold on. Look, let me explain this.
Sure,
right?
Please.
There is also a very real possibility that it starts the downfall of America, but it's one or the other, right? So this is either going to be responsible for the next walk away movement, where it creates a mass exodus from the Democrat Party because they're going to watch the biggest city in America fall, leave, and never come back, right? And if by the 2026 midterms, you have enough people who are reaching out to all their Democrat buddies and be like, we're going too far, it could create a red wave in the 2026 midterms. And then if they implement their socialist ideologies and policies in that state, New York's fucked, but the rest of the country, hopefully, this is why I said it's a high risk, high reward. Hopefully, we view it as a learning moment instead of embracing it. So what did it take for Rudy Giuliani to come in and fix New York in the first place?
Right.
It took
corruption and crime unchecked.
It took the corruption and crime unchecked. New York was a shithole. Then he came in and fixed it. What did it take for Reagan to come in and fucking, fix America? America was falling apart. What did it take for Trump to come in? America was in it's really that whole, Joe Rogan made the quote, or repeated the quote, but it's an old quote. Weak men create hard times.
Yeah.
Right. So weak men create hard times. Right now, you have a weak man who is about to take over the biggest city in the country. So I think that hard times hopefully will create strong men, and strong men will hopefully create good times.
I would hate for you to be correct. I know you probably are on this, and that he does get elected, and this does have to turn out to be a learning moment for the rest of the country. But hopefully, if that is the situation, that the rest of the country wakes up and puts a stop to this bullshit and realizes we do have to preserve who we are and our culture, period. Mm-hmm. We can't let this, slow dripping infiltration happen and allow our country to be taken from us.
Yeah, if it goes the other way, though, we're fucked. Right?
Because absolutely.
You got to think about what happened about 6 months ago. We almost put Kamala Harris into the
I know.
And if that happened, right, the hard times would have been every state, not just one.
True.
So I don't know, man. I love this country more then I hate the opposing party. So I would like it if he does not become the mayor, right? Because I do not want to see New York City fall. I don't want to see that happen. So I'm not rooting for this. I'm just reading tea leaves, right? So I don't want him to become mayor. But based off of everything I'm seeing, there's so many people that are like, they're like, oh, but what if Cuomo splits the vote and the Republic? No. He's probably going to be the mayor.
Well, that's part of our problem in America right now. It's always politics before people.
Yeah,
it's fucking bullshit. I wish that would go away, but I don't know how we're going to change that.
I mean, that's human beings, man. It's a tribalistic nature.
Absolutely.
And the two-party system. I was saying this to somebody else recently. They're like, the two-party system needs to be reformed. No, it doesn't. No, the two-party system works absolutely perfectly when you take corruption out of it. Right? The two-party system, the system that we have in place is a near perfect system. It's just been abused, right? The system itself is not the problem. It's the people that are abusing it, right? So take money out of politics and get back to for the people, by the people. Adding more parties isn't going to fix anything. Changing the whole system isn't going to fix anything. You find out what is broken, right? Well, what's broken is we have public servants that make more than the people they serve. We have public servants that are incentivized to be corrupt. We have foreign lobbies in our country. We have domestic lobbies in our system. So I've said this to so many people. I just did an interview with the guy who's running, John Goodman, who's running for Senate in Illinois. And I told him, I go, when you get in there, this is what I want you to do. I want you to propose this, right? You get no secondary income in Congress. None. Not one fucking dollar above your salary. I don't care what you set your salary at. Set it at $500,000 if you want, but you don't get $1 over it, right? No book deals, no speaking events, no stock trading, no nothing, no moonlighting. That's what you get, right? And if you do that, there is no incentive. I mean, sure, there are some people who are going to be like, yeah, I'd like to make $300,000 a year for the rest of my life. But the majority of people that go into Congress, they go in there because of the incentives.
Yeah,
right? So
the incentives and the connections, the power, everything that comes with it.
It's all, yeah, exactly. So take that out of politics. And the other thing is get rid of fucking PACs.
Yeah, we need to get rid of PACs, get rid of lobbyists, all of that bullshit.
Get rid of all of them. You should only be able to raise money based off of the people of this country.
And I agree with you that,
and raise the minimum amount to $5,000 instead of $3,500, and that's all you get.
And there should not be one person in Congress that is able to do any stock trading.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
Like, what the hell is that about? Like, look at Nancy Pelosi.
Income. And then the third thing is there should be a cap. There should be a campaign cap, right? And I don't know what the number needs to be, but one candidate shouldn't be able to have fucking $100 million for TV ads.
Look, when your salary is about $175,000, I forgot what the actual number is, but $175,000 here or there or less as a congressperson, you don't come out the other end a multimillionaire. And you definitely don't become a multimillionaire while you're serving in Congress with a salary of $175,000 or so.
Exactly.
They can't explain that away.
Here's the deal. If you take away the monetary incentive to be in Congress, right? Where you go in a bartender and you come out a millionaire.
Oh,
right?
That bag of rocks.
Yeah. If you take that away, right? You're only going to have two kinds of people that want to go into Congress, right? You're going to have people that really want to go in there to do the job, patriots, right? You're going to have veterans. You're going to have people that are like, I just want to go do the job because I care, right? Public servants. And then you're going to have rich people who don't need to do it.
No.
They don't need Trump.
But they want to change policy.
But again, they also want to go in there and do it for the right reasons. So the second one, you could have some people who are like bad intent, right?
Oh, you will. But there's always going to be that one.
But I think it's going to be way less than all of the people that come in there with an idea of changing for the better, and then get corrupt.
Maybe we should go back to removing the salary and just giving them a stipend.
Sure.
If you want to serve, this is what it is. You want to serve your nation and you want to influence the nation from that position, then here's your $5,000 a year stipend or whatever it is.
No, if I had my way, you'd make the median income of your district, and the only way you get a raise is if your people do.
No, there you go.
So if you raise the rising tide raises all ships theory, would be my approach to Congress. But look, man, unfortunately, in order for that to happen, you'd need the people who make the laws to give themselves a fucking pay cut. And I don't see it happening. So
no, I mean, come on, they vote in lifetime medical. You can serve like 1 year or so, and all of a sudden you're locked in for a lifetime retirement. But
here's what we might be able to do right now. That perfect system that I just described of taking money out of politics because the system itself isn't broken, the people are.
It always starts with people, man. You can't take out greed and the need for power.
What we might be able to accomplish with good leadership, like hopefully Donald Trump will start pushing this messaging, and if enough people really push this, what we might be able to do is no secondary income, no stock trading and term limits. If you do no stock trading and term limits, that's a huge dent out of it.
Well, term limits is huge, and they should have done that a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fucking president. Why does the president have term limits? Oh, so he doesn't get corrupted.
Right.
Well, fucking apply that to everybody then.
Come on, man. Look, when you're in Congress in your 30s. And here you are in your 80s, still trying to walk around. At what point do their peers say, "Look, it's time for you to retire"?
So I have another suggestion too, and I thought of this. I thought of this a while back, and I think it's a really good system. I think that you should have term limits. You should have like a promotional system, right? So you should be able to be like a representative for like 6 years, right?
Okay.
So a representative for 6 years, a House member for 4 years, right? So that's 10. Then you should be able to go into the Senate for 2 terms. So what would that be? 12?
Yeah.
12. Okay. So you got 6, 4, 12. That's 22 years. Okay. Then you can be vice president, right? For 4 to 8 years. And you can be president for 4 to 8 years. And so that means, right, you have 22 in Congress, 8 in vice presidency, 30 years, and 8 maximum in a presidency. The most amount of time that you can be in politics if you win every single election is 38 years. That's about how long people work in a career before they retire anyway.
I like that idea. The only thing is it does remove the option for the average person who never was able to get into that to be able to run for president, for example.
No. What I'm saying is you start like it should literally be it should work just like any other career.
No, I understand what you're saying. I do.
Where you would literally work yourself up to the ranks. You start as a rep.
You get enough experience, then you're eligible for X. Then you're
local politics. You can do whatever you want. In local politics. Local politics, no rules. I'm talking about Washington. In Washington, right? You can start off as a rep. You can start off then you can move up to a House member. You can move from a House to the Senate. You can move from the Senate to the vice presidency. You can move or just straight to the presidency. But I'm saying the maximum under this system, the most you could ever work.
So you're saying if you want to enter politics and make that a career, then your max service should be around 38 years or so.
Just like every other job, you start in the mailroom.
Yeah.
And then you get promoted to this, and then you get promoted to that.
I get it, but you're not advocating for like, let's say me or you running for president of the United States. It's just those career politicians should have a shelf life regardless.
That's what I'm saying. So with the term limits, right? I think that it should be almost like a promotional role, right? Where it's like, okay, so like,
and that makes a lot of sense.
Be like, okay, if you've already done your 6 years, you have to go to this position, right? Or you have to leave office,
right?
So you have to either jump up to this position, which is the only one available to you, or you're gone. And that way, it's not just a term limit; it's a congressional limit, where it's like it's not even just terms. It's like you're fucking done. You're done. You did this.
Yeah, you did your service. Thank you. Time to move on.
Exactly.
Awesome.
All right, brother.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, that was great, man. Like I said, I've been trying to get on these. I've been dealing with personal stuff, and I just got my show back this week, so I'm trying to do these interviews. So I appreciate you bringing me on.
Hey, no worries. There's going to be a lot coming from this. But anyway, bottom line, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it. I think you and I are going to keep talking. I feel like we agree on a lot, but
sure.
Definitely, man. And again, thank you.
Appreciate it, Joy.
Content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.